Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. Like we said, I've wanted to do this. This is going to be a spoilery breakdown review of Wonder Woman 1984. I repeat, this is a spoiler-filled breakdown of Wonder Woman 1984. So if you haven't seen Wonder Woman 1984 and you do not want to get spoiled, check out my other review. The link is right up there. That is a non-spoiler version of this review. But for this one, I want to go into the plots, into the characters, stuff that I like, stuff that I didn't. And it's going to be spoiler-filled. So this is your last warning. This is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion. All right, let's get into it right now. So the first scene, I'm going to make me a little bigger. The first scene we do get of this entire movie is the Amazon opening sequence. This is the games, the Olympics, what have you. This is where Diana and the rest of the Amazonians are going to be this contest, right, to win something, recognition, right? And so this is an actually very important scene. When I first watched this, it was kind of like, oh, that was cool, that was great. And then, it's just showing you flashbacks of when she was young. But if you listen to the opening, the message is clear that she's trying to say that she wishes she remembered the lesson of taking shortcuts, not cheating, seeing the truth, those lessons that she should have took with her to that moment in 1984 when she needed the most, right? So that was the lesson here. You do see a lot of these different things that kind of, these visual cues that tell you what type of skills that she's going to do. None of that bow and arrow stuff, but she does have the skill of lassoing the missile later on in the desert scene. You see that here when one of the Amazons lassos an arrow. And so you see some of that going. So you see that she's capable of doing that, using the whip or the lasso to hit in a center, using it as like a projectile in a way. You see that later on as well. So there's visual cues of them doing stuff within these games that, kind of show you that this is the kind of stuff Wonder Woman's going to do later on in the movie. So that's kind of cool to see that happen. We get to see, Queen Hippolyta and the auntie as well, Robin Wright. And so it's cool to see that, but also pay attention to what they tell her, right? Because Lily Aspel, I think that's how you say her name, who plays a younger Diana, you see her throughout the games. She is always looking back. Like I noticed that she's looking back every time she's on a horse ride. And ultimately, her last time she looks back, she gets hit by a tree and falls off her horse. And then she has to cheat, goes through a shortcut, misses the arrow, misses shooting that one target. I felt that later on, that's going to be important. Not only did she take a shortcut, but she kept looking back. Wonder why? What does that mean? She kept looking back. So pay attention to that. I paid attention to that. Then afterwards, she talks to her mother, and she's like, "It's not fair," and stuff like that. And says, "Hey, that's cheating. You took a shortcut. You have to see to the truth and things like that." And then what is the reward, right? She keeps her, the Antiope, she keeps her from throwing the spear, making the spear fly through the hole, right? Through the hole. She keeps her from doing that because she took a shortcut. The prize is recognition, being in front of what is basically the armor. You see this huge statue with this golden armor. Well, later on, we revealed that this is actually an armor from a legendary Amazon warrior by the name of Asteria, right? And you see here kind of like a throwback to the 300s, because you got the Spartans on the back trying to, you can't get through the armor because it's really powerful. And then later on we revealed that that's actually Linda Carter. So this is the post-credit scene, by the way. I know I jumped ahead. I wanted to tie it together. That was Linda Carter playing Asteria, doing a weird fourth wall wink towards the camera at the end of the post-credit scene. But I knew that, and she's been around for a while. She's still alive. So we'll get into that a little further and how that could be maybe something that could be worked in either in the Amazon spinoff or possibly Wonder Woman 3. But essentially, this was the goal. This is what she needed to get to if she didn't take a shortcut, if she didn't do all that. She not, and this would be the prize, right? This is the prize. We know at the end she wears this, and I'll tell you why, right? It makes sense. It does make sense. It does. Now, we get introduced to other characters within the story. We get introduced to not only Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, once again, to see her in the 1980s era, but we also get introduced to Barbara Minerva, and Kristen Wiig playing Barbara Minerva, and Pedro Pascal playing as Maxwell Lord. Now, this is not the Maxwell Lord you see in the comic books. This is kind of like a industry tycoon, an entrepreneur, someone who works really hard and very, kind of that car salesman, snake oil salesman kind of person, very like, trickery, all that kind of things. And so he's not, he's kind of the Maxwell Lord you see in the comics, but you peel that back and you find out who he really is. Like Barbara Minerva, her true self is in the beginning. She's that bumbling person with the glasses, very wholesome, if you will. Not many people recognize that. So they both, in a way, change to be the character that later on in the story. Although I would say Maxwell Lord was a certain character, changed before we even meet him, and then eventually he changes back throughout this whole story. These two have a very intriguing character arcs for themselves, right? Like Maxwell Lord, once he gets the stone, you see that he's not really the suave, tycoon person. He's actually in a bit of a mess. He probably owes a lot of money. His oil business is not actually making oil, and he's got so many investors here that quit on him, and it's a problem. So he wants to get this dream stone, this wish stone, to get his business right, to get whatever he wants. Ultimately, he becomes the stone. He wishes that away. He wishes to be the stone so he can make more wishes, and instead of just using that one wish that Barbara Minerva does, and her wish is to be like Diana. Not knowing at the time that being like Diana would also make her probably immortal. Well, not immortal, but like able to live long. I guess you could call it immortal. And strong and powerful, just like her, and fast, things like that. So, but her arc is interesting. She goes from bumbling person to this. Even though she has a cheetah, she's not exactly the cheetah yet. I'd say this form right here is Diana form, meaning she has all the powers that Diana has, and she didn't realize that until later on when they have the White House fight, and then she gets a second wish. This was the first wish with the stone. She gets a second wish from Maxwell Lord towards the end, to become the apex predator, right? And we don't actually hear her say, "I want to become a cheetah." She just says, "Apex predator." He hasn't actually touched her yet in order to get that wish, so we don't know what it is. But later on, reveal that she becomes this form afterwards. So, after renouncing the wish, like Maxwell Lord renouncing the wish, she actually takes away this, but she doesn't actually renounce her own wish, so she could still be in this middle form right here, right? And so I'll allude more, let's talk a little bit more about Wonder Woman 3 a little bit later. But the main character is absolutely still Wonder Woman Diana Prince, and she's still herself. She hasn't changed much. Her character is essentially her character she ended off in Wonder Woman 1. and not the violent, gritty, not the very cold-shouldered version that she sees in BVS, although she does display some of that in like some scenes in terms of the party scene, where she's trying to hunt Maxwell Lord, or other scenes where in regards to him. But for the most part, she is herself from the first Wonder Woman movie, and she's just plopped into a time period, the 80s time period, which a lot of people have problems with, right? The difference between Patty Jenkins' 80s time period that she displays, especially in the first scene, the the little bit of scenes before even the mall scene, but there's just that little segment in the opening scenes where we find her doing things like saving a jogger from being hit by a car, saving a bride that falls off the bridge, and ultimately taking care of these criminals here in the mall. It's not as cheesy and campy as Richard Donner or even Richard Lester's Superman 1 or 2 or even 3 or even 4, but it's almost there. Like it's almost there, and it's really apparent when you watch them, right? And I would like to say, like, I think it would have benefited Patty Jenkins to have Zack Snyder's stunt and action crew choreographer like Damon Carroll from the first Wonder Woman film, or even utilizing the Stone Quarry action team for Wonder Woman 1984. I think it would have benefited a lot, and I think it would have worked out a lot. And like I said, this is in my review, this mall scene and the other action pieces in there, that's the only really the only campy looking cheesy Donner Lester-esque comedy scenes in the whole movie. Like the other parts of the 80s movie it's just set in the 80s. Like it like this is the only part where you realize that it's new. Afterwards, you just kind of forget that, oh yeah, this is an 80s film. Like you just reminded once in a while by the clothing and things like that. But for the most part, they don't act like this later on. I mean, there are some, they're just normal. They're not too over the top. I don't know if you noticed, I've watched this like 5-6 times already, and I noticed that these are the only parts that they act like that. Afterwards, nothing. Yeah, it's like that just went away. And so I'm thinking, okay, maybe it would have worked better if she just kept it like the later parts of the movie, how people like you don't see the agents, the Secret Service in the White House acting like the people in here. So, although I would say that people freaking out that that dude over there is gonna drop that girl, that's pretty true. Like I'd be like that. I'm like, no, 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 no. I would definitely act like that. I think people in that moment would probably act like that. But other things like spinning out of control, things like that, and hitting them, and your like legs are flipping up and everything. That's kind of like, okay, that was much. But it's her homage to Donner and Lester. That's where she wanted to take that, right? So I get it, but I still think it would have benefited to have some of that Zack Snyder action crew. Let's talk about action scenes. There's not another action scene until like an hour or so after that first one. Yeah, after this one, nothing. Like she's not even in the Wonder Woman garment until we get to the desert chasing, which is like a lot of good stuff in there, but a lot of like this running scene, like it was really not very well. Like I said, it's still they could use some Zack Snyder stuff in there to help it out, beef it up a little bit more, right? Although there's some cool things where she's pushing one of the tanks or whatever, the APC or something, to block from getting shot at. I thought that was cool. Then we also find out this is where she starts getting injured. She gets shot and everything, and we're like, what's going on with this lady, right? So this is where we find out that because she wished for a certain person, we'll talk about that. This is why she is losing her powers. So she's losing something. When you wish for something, you lose something at the same time. Barbara Minerva wished to be like Diana. She loses her wholesome, innocent self, and so her humanity disappears. In this case, Diana loses her powers when she wished for Steve Trevor to come back, right? Steve Trevor is back. Yes. How does he come back? Well, at the party scene, some random dude just comes up to my son said this. She was watching it with me, and he says, "That's not Steve Trevor. That's some random dude." He says random, quote unquote, random dude. Yeah, it is. He's a random dude. He shows up at the party, puts the watch in her hand like you've seen in the trailer or in the movie. And she turns around and she looks up at him, and all of a sudden he's Steve Trevor, right? So Steve Trevor's ghost goes into the body of some random dude. That's how he comes back. And when she looks in the mirror, Steve Trevor sees this. When she looks at him, she sees this. She sees Steve Trevor, right? So this is kind of controversial because we're like, did she just have sex with some random dude and he doesn't even know? Like, where did his spirit go? Did he wake up at the end of the film like, wow, it's Christmas? Like, I don't remember what happened in the last week or so. Like, I don't know how long it's from this Christmas to, I don't know how long it has passed. I think it's about a week or a few days. Like, lapse of mind. Like, what happened there? So I thought that was kind of like, okay. I think people are going to have issue with that. And sure enough, people did. Some random dude just got his body taken by to him, a random dude. And gal, totally forgot she was with a random dude at this point, right? So, but, if you think about it, it happened in some other 80s movies like Ghostbusters, the first one, right? Ghostbusters 1. We had this scene, right, where, Sigourney Weaver's character, Rick Moranis' character, is taken over by some demon dogs or whatever, and they do it. Like, they either I think they actually do it, and that wasn't a problem back then. They woke up, and it's all right. They don't have the demon in them. They clearly had done something. So it's like, okay, that's acceptable in the 80s, but now, modern culture, you're gonna have some problems with this type of thing, because this is not the 80s anymore. This is something, this is now. So this, and in our minds, when we watch Ghostbusters, it's already stored in like nostalgia, in the nostalgia cabinet. So we already understand, well, that was made in the 80s and stuff like that. She tried to do that, but I don't think it's going to work out this time around. And sure enough, a lot of people do have some problems with this. You may not have a problem with it. I'm like, well, she made it because it's in the 80s. She tried to make it like in the 80s, even the action scenes. And it worked. To me, it's like, all right, that's the way she was trying to make it. I don't think that's going to fly with a lot of people now. And sure enough, it didn't. But that's what happened. So they go on a globetrotting together. She wants to find out why he's back. She figured it out and, goes to Egypt, right? In a plane. And so I know that, Patty Jenkins wanted to incorporate the invisible plane in here, and she does. All of a sudden, in order to make this plane invisible, Diana Prince starts saying, okay, well, she was trying to work out this skill where she was trying to make things invisible, like how Themyscira is invisible to the world, right? And I thought that was a cool way, because I was thinking, okay, yeah, I remember that Themyscira was invisible. I wonder how that technology worked. And so instead of technology, it's, I guess, magic. And she was trying to make that happen because Zeus made it happen. And so she's the daughter of Zeus and blah, blah, blah. So it was really quick. It was really like just out of the blue. But I guess, yeah, that makes sense. You've been around, this is not like it's not World War II. This is a long time since World War One. You obviously try to focus your powers and things like that and do things differently. She even threw in a little story that her mug is missing because it's invisible now. So she able to make this invisible plane. So it was a really a cool way for Patty Jenkins to incorporate the invisible plane. At first, it was kind of jarring, but then I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. After a few viewings, you're kind of like, you just go with it. You just run with it, right? So they go through Egypt and have that weird desert action scene and things like that. Lassoing the missile, what have you. Finally figure out that her powers are depleting. We get to the White House, and then she finally, gets stopped by, Barbara Minerva. In this, I'm not calling her Cheetah yet because she's essentially just Barbara Minerva, like a strong Barbara Minerva, right? And at this point, everything starts to make sense as we going through. Maxwell Lord getting, he's dying, and so he needs to make more wishes because his body can't handle it. He needs to grant more wishes and take things away to restore himself, and so he takes over the presidency in a way, and gets all the agents to take him to some broadcast center where he can broadcast what he wants to the world, right? Satellite touching. That part is kind of like, wait, what? Satellite touching? That don't make sense. Okay, but we'll get into that in a little bit because I want to talk about this. This by far is one of the best acting that Gal Gadot has done in this movie. When she went from being a strong, assertive, and confident to seeing her friend, basically she is her friend now, her humanity gone, becoming her, and feeling like, her friend has finally just gone to the other side, taking her strength with her. She becomes less of a powerful person, less of a god, and also at this moment that she knows what she needs to do. She needs to sacrifice Steve Trevor to get her powers back, right? She needs to sacrifice Steve to get her powers back so she can save the world. And he's telling her this. You know what to do. You know what to do since you found out that you needed the wishes to be renounced, right? You need to renounce your wish. And at this moment, I was like, she's on the ground. She's beaten. She's bleeding. Physically done for. Emotionally done for. Mentally done for. I was like, wow. This is her at her very low point. And at this moment, she's like at her most low because broken and everything. Her powers are gone. She is human. And this is the moment where she realized, like, I got to do something. And it does remind me of Superman 2, when Christopher Reeve's Superman gets broken and beaten in that bar by that random dude. Random trucker. Broken, beaten. He's human. And then he realizes that I need my powers back because I have to take on General Zod, right? So to me, this is what Patty was doing in terms of an homage to that Superman 2, right? Where he needs to go back to that crystal chamber, get his powers back, and save the world. She needs to do that too. She realizes she has to sacrifice being with Steve Trevor for having him be there, regardless if that's just a random dude's body. But to her, that's him, right? So she has to do something about that. And then I think this was an incredible moment for me. Like this, when she finally learned how to fly, was an intense moment for me. I think this was a great score, by the way, by Hans Zimmer, where she kisses him. She walks away, not even looking. She's walking towards the camera. She's going down the street, and she's like, I renounce my wish. And then she starts instantly healing. She's turning human. All of a sudden, he's not important anymore. I mean, he is important, but he's done. He's gone. Steve Trevor's gone, right? She had a little sliver of what she always wanted, that wish that she's always wanted. She wanted Steve Trevor to be back, right? She was holding on to the past. It kept her from flying, right? It kept her holding on to her past. Like in the beginning, in the opening, where as a girl, she kept looking back. She kept looking back, right? Her adult self kept looking back. She keeps looking back to her past. And it keeps her from flying the spear. Okay, there's symbolism when I saw this. I've seen it six times. There's symbolism there. It's like her adult self is like her child self, looking back, always looking back, getting hit, getting all these obstacles, trying to do the shortcut, trying to cheat, right? That's what's happened. That's why she said at the beginning, I wish I listened to myself. I wish I listened to the lessons I've learned in the past. Because she did it again. She couldn't ignore the past. She couldn't ignore her Steve Trevor. But now she has to. She has to throw it away, basically throw it away. Sacrifice that part in her life so she can look forward and not cheat. And then you can fly. Just like those javelins flying through the hole, she can soar. This is her moment to be free, right? So she got, and it's great to hear Steve Trevor's voice talking about how to fly and things like that. Great score here, by the way. And yeah, she flies just like in the Justice League animated. Wonder Woman flew then. Wonder Woman flies in the comics and things like that. She finally found her strength and she flies. And it's a beautiful moment. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. Just seeing that revelation in her mind that this is how she becomes more powerful, by letting go of the past. Letting go of what you really, really, truly want that you can't have because it was never there. It was a lie. The truth is, Steve Trevor's gone. He's already been gone. And he says it. I'm already gone. Let me go. And then you can be great. You can be truthful. You can deserve the golden armor now. So that's what her mom was trying to tell her. If you find the truth, you realize the truth, you don't cheat, you work hard for it, pretty much, you deserve the armor. And so at this moment, she's like, I need that armor. Not only I need that armor, but symbolically, she deserves to wear it now. She can wear it now. She's able to wear it now. So full circle from what she learned as a child to now realizing what she had to go through. Like she said, I don't know what I need to learn until I had to go through it first. So she finally went through it. She finally got the gold armor. She finally wears it, and she's ready to take on, Cheetah, in that moment. So she's ready to take on Cheetah at this very moment, which has actually was a really good fight. I think out of all the other action sequences, the White House sequence was a great fight, and this was a great fight as well. This is the kind of fight where this is kind of your big boss, big bad third, the kind of third act fight. This is where it is, and great. I mean, I at first when you see the trailers, it's really blurry, but when you actually see her, to me, that's pretty good CGI. I have no qualms about it. I think that was a really good one. And the way she tries to save her as well, all the way to the very end, gets electrocuted. I want to say Yeah, Diana Prince can get electrocuted, but apparently Donna Troy can't in Titans. Throw a little bit shade that way, but I'm just saying, it's cool to see those moments in that film. Now, the actual final part of the final act, if you will, where Maxwell Lord is doing the whole "I grant your wish." He grants everybody's wish. He's using some satellite thing to digitally, I guess, or radio wavelengths touch people, which it can be kind of ridiculous, but at this point in the film, you kind of just go with it. And he's taking wishes. He's granting wishes all around the world, right? And so Wonder Woman is trying to get close to him, but this weird, freakish air or wind power is holding her back. And then she's down on the ground, right? She doesn't know what to do, and she can't get to him in a physical manner. So she has to talk to him, and she starts talking to him. You have that amazing Hans Zimmer's "Beautiful Lie" score in the background. This is the moment where a lot of people had a lot of problems. Like, it's not a big action sequence. Like, I don't think it needs to be, because he literally is a dude, right? He has no powers. You can't fight him. You just got to reason with him, because you find out he's not really a bad guy, right? You kind of know, because you meet his son and he talks to his son, and you realize, okay, he's just a working man trying to get by in the world, and he's just been out of luck. Like a lot of people right now, even who are very unfortunate in their jobs right now. They'll do anything to be successful, right? And that's the whole point of the story. Is like the whole world has that problem. There's everybody has those problems where they want something and they work for it, but they have an opportunity where I can just wish for it. But is that the truth? Is that how you get there? Should we have those shortcuts? Should we just instantly want something and not realize that we're sacrificing something else, that it's being taken away, something that we hold valuable being taken away? And so she's talking to him, and he realizes that, well, she tells him that she's actually talking to the world, right? They don't see her, because you see the billboards, you just hear some ethereal voice just talking to them that you should renounce your wish, because what is it really giving you? It's giving what you want, but it's also taking something away. And this moment, Maxwell Lord just realized what it's taking away from him. You see his past. That's why the beautiful lie is just like Bruce Wayne looking back in the past, that it was a beautiful lie. In this, the context of this is that the wish is everything, the success and everything is a lie. It's beautiful, but it's a lie. It's not the truth. And so we find out that he is really, I think, he looks and dresses and talks like, I guess you could say, like a white man, right? But he was actually born, he's Hispanic or Chilean, I don't know. And he is not a white man. So he worked hard and he tries to look the part so that he becomes more successful, right? But we find out that he's not that. He's obviously his son is half Asian, half, I think, Hispanic as well. So you see that he's just a working dude, and he's losing that part of him. He's already lost that part of him by the start of the movie. But we find out more about him. We also find out that what he holds most valuable, of course, is his son, as we've seen him multiple times. His son is the most valuable. And this part really, truly breaks my heart. Okay? This is the part where my wife, when we watched it, we cried. Where he essentially, because right before the final act, he talks to his son, Alistair. Alistair wants him to be happy so that he can, spend time with him. So he says, I wish you to be great. And in that moment, he did. That wish came true. That's why he becomes, essentially the president in a way, and because he becomes great, right? But then he realizes that what he's taken away is that his son starts to go is in danger, and he realizes that that's more important. And that message at the end holds really. I mean, I have 3 boys, and sometimes I'm working here, and they want to play, and I'm like, oh, maybe later, maybe later. And at that moment, I feel like, oh man, I should spend time with my kids. So after I cried, my wife and I cried, we hugged our sons, because that part emotionally really affected me. And I just realized that Maxwell Lord, he's not the Maxwell Lord in the comics. This is a working man. He tries hard to make his son proud. You all want to make your kids proud of you. He feels like he's not good enough. And the son goes, Dad, you don't have to make me proud. I love you, Daddy. You're my dad. So it's like, oh, every time I watch it, like, just chokes, you get choked up just thinking about that, right? And even when he, awesome actor, Pedro Pascal, Maxwell Lord, he's like, um, I just want for you to be proud of me, right? You don't have to wish me to love you. And I'm like, oh, it's so heartbreaking, so heartwarming. And it shows you that all these people, they're not all villains, right? They're not bad. There's something in them that they wanted something. They want to take shortcuts. You want to take a shortcut. You want to do things, but you can't, because it's a beautiful lie. You have to hold true to yourself, and you have to essentially work for it, right? And it's such a big thing. I think that's why the conversation, we tend to look past the important subjects, the important story, the important conversation that we're trying to in this movie, and we quickly go to the things like, oh, it's not as serious like a Zack Snyder. It's not as there's those campy moments. Yeah, there's some really artistically things in there that are questionable, and decisions like body swapping and whatever. But the nature of the story, became apparent to me in this scene and when she flew, because to me it was about the characters. To me, it came down to the characters. We're shown certain aspects of the characters, but we're not, we're avoiding the actual story behind the characters. We find out who Maxwell Lord it really is. We find out that Barbara Minerva, she changes into something, but she loses a part of herself that made her truly human. We find out that Diana was truly holding back because she couldn't let go of her past. And when she finally let go of her past, she physically and emotionally, mentally flew. She became better. She became larger than life. And through their adventures, through their actions, through this whole movie, each character found out a lot more about themselves. But I want to add that one caveat is that, not him, but Barbara Minerva, we don't know what happens to her. She's just at that edge of that cliff. She turns back to her human form. But I'd still say she is still as powerful as Diana. So that one day, later on, she could come back as Cheetah once again. So that there is something to that. But this here was heartwarming, heartbreaking, and it truly made sense. It truly affected. It would affect, I think, every father out there who works very hard so that their family could, be okay. And so emotionally, this was a fantastic movie. And it makes for me, that's why I love it. I didn't love it because of the action scenes. I didn't love it because It was a comic book movie. I loved it because of the message it was trying to convey. I loved it because of how it pulled together toward all the way at the end, and how it made sense to me. Does that make it a better than the first Wonder Woman movie? No. I think the first Wonder Woman movie is still by far better in all aspects, in terms of enjoyable comic book movie. Does it hold and actually become really compelling? Like, I really can't wait to watch it again over and over and seeing all these little nuggets. Maybe because this is the sixth time and I'm actually seeing a little bit more, but I don't think it has the depths of Batman v Superman, or even like Man of Steel, because even that's even has better action scenes than this one. But I think it has a little bit more depth in terms of rewatchability, in terms of the characters, than Aquaman. So I find it's a bit more better than Aquaman. But yeah, yes, there are problems with the action scenes and some of the stuff. But after that first mall scene, all that campiness and cheesiness just went away. Like, it just, if you notice, if you watch it again, they aren't there later on. And it's just set in the 80s looks only, not in character like how it is in other movies from before. And it's crazy. It's great to see Steve Trevor going through, like, realizing all this future tech and stuff to him. So that's kind of fun. But for the most part, it's kept it pretty minimal. It's not many jokes in this. There's at all, really. There's like there's no slapstick jokes in here other than the first mall scene, and that's about it. But other than that, it was an enjoyable romp. I probably watch it again. The score is fantastic. The story was trying to tell it's fantastic. The characters are fantastic. So for me, I love this movie. And it's okay if you don't like this movie. That's perfectly fine. We don't have to like the same movie. Movies are subjective. You can like your movies, I can like my movies. I'm just telling you how I felt and where I'm getting the love for this movie from. So hopefully you enjoyed that. But like I said, I wanted to get into some Ping Pong Flix members' questions and comments for this, because I didn't want to pull this on my daily show, because I realized that it could be very spoilery. So let's look into it now. Zack P. The fight scenes were decent. The plot and storyline were great. I really found it campy like the old TV shows were, and that was the best part. Why not go full 80s style? Doobie. In short, it was awesome. Where were your kids when you watched this? Only one of my kid actually stayed and watched the whole thing with me, and the other two, they didn't really care for it. They still like cartoons and stuff like that. But this one, he loves Batman v Superman. He likes Man of Steel, and so I said, "This is the next movie," and he watched it and he enjoyed it. So, Timothy Dalbeck, I did get to watch on HBO Max. I just had to put up with the app crashing 4 or 5 times, and believe it or not, a blackout. Past those annoying issues, I did enjoy it. It was great. I look forward to Zack Snyder's Justice League in March. I had some glitches in the beginning, like you. But after that was it. For the most part, yeah. I didn't have any. I did have blackout, but that was like later on, like a day later. Lego Dinosaur, great film, but not enough action or Wonder Woman. Yeah, no, I totally agree. There was that whole span of no action for that 1 hour part. But as I'm watching it in the end, I do enjoy just learning about the characters. So it's kind of like BVS, where you don't get a amount of action in the beginning parts as well. It's just character development and where have they been. So I felt that it's kind of the same. Although, yeah, I agree. There maybe one little action would have been nice. But I think Patty Jenkins didn't make an action film this time around. I think this is more of a drama, if you know what I mean. Raj Rudolph. Hey, Chris, I love Wonder Woman 1984, whereas the first film introduced us to Diana Prince, the George Perez era warrior. This film paid homage to all of us who grew up on the Super Friends cartoon as well as Linda Carter's Wonder Woman TV show. Absolutely love the contrast here. I don't get how people are saying it's low in action. The Amazon scene, the mall scene, the Egypt scene, the White House scene, and the Cheetah showdown, so much action. For a next film set in present day, who would you like to see as a villain? More or Cheetah, or a new villain like Cersei, Silver Swan, or Giganta? Well, I've talked about the Silver Swan because someone in another video mentioned that it's like nanites, and they could use that as a future for dystopian. So I'd love that. Definitely more Cheetah, Cersei, yes. Giganta, that would be cool to see in live action, kind of like the Ant-Man thing. But that would be pretty cool to see if that were to happen. So any of those would be awesome. Like I said, there is action. It's just not. There's just a whole section that there is none. But for me, it was fine. I mean, I was kind of intrigued throughout the learning about the characters, learning about Steve Trevor coming back, and just watching him in awe of technology. That was kind of, it wasn't like slapstick funny, but it was just funny to see his reactions to certain things. So it was kind of nice. So to me, that got me through it. Just like BVS, where you just get through the first chunk before we even get to the action parts. For me, Amparo, for me, it was very emotional, but it has a lot of flaws. The Themyscira architecture looks very contemporary. The mall scenes were very cartoonish, and I'm from the 80s, and they should have only one villain. I feel Minerva was wasted. She was very good, but shadowed because the other villain. I leave the spoiler for the next one. Yeah, no, I see what you mean by that. Like I said, Barbara Minerva, to me, I saw how she became to be, but I felt like there needed to be an end to that character arc, because she just becomes no longer Cheetah, and I don't think she has actually learned anything. She didn't renounce her wish. She didn't learn, I don't think, anything. So I think maybe they're saving the rest of her arc for the next one. I say this movie was full of potential and missed opportunities. I certainly can't draw a connection between the Wonder Woman portrayed in this film and what we would eventually get in BVS. This is one of those situations where it feels like there are too many cooks in the kitchen. So definitely agree. Right now, you don't see her into terms of BVS. She does, to me, she is not out in the open, even though she's out in the open physically, you can see her, but she's not taking part in wars and things like that. So to me, that's like not being part of mankind. And like Zack said, it's up to you to put it together or not. And obviously, a lot of people are going to disregard this, and that's fine. That's fine. It's fine to disregard this. It doesn't make BVS any less better. You can just go straight to BVS if you want and just, draw your own conclusions. I mean, I can do that, but I can see that not many people can do that. Unfortunately. Eric Blake, nearly all the cheese was pretty much just in the Diana in the 80s sequence in the beginning. In the movie proper, however, there are a lot of tears, especially from Diana, arguably some of the best acting Gal's entire career. I agree. Like the mall scene after that, like I said, that was pretty much it. And then afterwards, there wasn't much of it later on, as I've watched it 6 times. El Necrod, I loved it, got some popcorn and had a blast, and the epic release of her powers was amazing. What a great treat to see this movie. Sean Gates, Chris, do you remember a little while back I made some predictions about the connection between Steve's return, Cheetah, and Max Lord? This might be a little too long, so I won't go into this because, I'm trying to save, trying to make it smaller comments. I wasn't 100% right, but I did have a lot right? I'll look into that. I'll check into that to see if you definitely were. You probably were. If you've seen it already, you probably were if you're saying that. Jimmy Holly, shut off to finish later after mall scene. Very Donner-esque. We're trying for that. Interested to see what the 1980 setting was for. Merry Christmas, Chris. Thanks for working the DC tip, man. God bless. Thank you so much, Jimmy Holly. After after the mall scene, that's pretty much it for the Donner-esque. Brandon Hayes, honestly, Wonder Woman 84 was good. I dug it. I'm a bit misogynistic, to be honest. I prefer Man of Steel sequel or more Ben Affleck Batman or Cyborg. I can understand the Wonder Woman character. I just can't relate to her. I felt the movie was more interesting. In the first film, she's fighting in a dark World War II setting, or World War I. Similar to that of the film Saving Private Ryan. I think that was more interesting than the shiny 1984 setting, but this new movie was still decent. But real talk, I'm waiting for the Snyder cut. Okay, Julian Ortega. I was disappointed in the lack of action because the intro seemed exciting. The final battle was a letdown. The opening scene is my favorite part of the movie. I don't think it needs to be seen in the theater. Didn't feel epic to me. A lot of talking and character building was fine to see on my TV at home. Just my opinion. What was your favorite part? My favorite part was essentially probably the flying sequence. Like when she learns how to fly, the music there, she running down the street and she going up and learning to fly. I think that to me overall was my favorite part. Superman, man, the end of this movie had me gushing. Yeah, me too. Oh man, me too. Me too, buddy. Big Rooster. The last 1.5 hours, Wonder Woman 84 is perfect. Just starts out messy. I'll cut the mall scene out of the movie for my personal cut of Wonder Woman 84. That's fair. Someone just, yeah, that's fair. And I think they should plug it. I still think they should plug it in with some type of action scene to establish Wonder Woman in the 80s. But it doesn't have to go all 80s movies camp. Like if actual 80s, you've seen actual 80s, like in terms of the Joker movie, Joaquin Phoenix Joker movie, that's set in the 80s, and that's not campy. It's just set in the 80s. It could have done that, but Patty Jenkins wanted to show that version of it, and that's what she did. But to me, it didn't need that. It could have been just a actiony sequence just to establish, like, oh, okay, she's in the 80s. Solid B was really, really bad, but everything after that is great. Yeah, so after the mall scene, like I said, like you just said, it didn't have that anymore, which is weird, right? So, but and I almost wondered why that's the case. Like it could have been, or it could have just been like that, and then the entire movie would have been like that. Fine, that would have been cool. But a lot of people like the 80s mall scene as well, as some have already agreed to that. But, that they could have took that out. But overall, it didn't bother me, as it's not impressive. I don't hate it. It's just not impressive. I think else you can say that. I'm like middle of the road there. To me, when it gets to the end, the whole story and how it pulls together and how it manages to bring the story of what she said at the beginning of the movie, and it kind of, in a way, what she gone through as her little self, that was the story. That's the story right there. In a way, that's the lessons to be learned right there. So it made sense at the end, and I think it pulls it together very well. So that's it. That's my breakdown, spoiler review, and just going through my thoughts on it and how I think the reasons why I love it. You don't have to love it. It is definitely divisive indeed, but I felt compelled to tell you the reason why I loved it. Like I said, it wasn't for the action. It wasn't for the comic book accuracy of it. It was what it was trying to tell us. It was about the moral of the story and the lessons that Diana Prince learned for this era in her life. So for that, I thought it worked pretty perfectly for me. All right. Well, that is it. Thank you so much for watching. Like I said, if you absolutely love this daily dose of DC content, movie shows, and video games, please click the like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, keep this hot dog light on, and I'll see you next time.